Why is my birthday hall empty? Where is everyone? I invited all of them.
Noella had always shown up for everyone, family, friends, but when she needed them the most, no one showed up for her. But before we judge anyone, let's hear the whole story. Noella was the only child of her parents. At 24 years old, she worked as a sales girl in a small food shop. The salary was barely enough to cover her expenses, and most months she struggled to pay her bills. Despite her financial challenges, Noella was loved by many, or at least that was what they claimed. She had countless friends, favorite aunties, favorite uncles, and cousins who could call on her at any time. And whenever they did, Noella never said no. When her friend Macy organized her child's dedication, Noella was the first person to arrive at the venue. In fact, before anyone could call her name, she had already taken charge of the entire occasion. She ran around the hall in her slippers as if her life depended on it. Anyone seeing her that day would have thought she was the event planner. And that was not a one-time thing. It was the same with all her friends, whether it was Kiki's graduation, Amanda's bridal shower, or Nora's family celebration. Noella was always there. Her kindness extended beyond her friends. Family members constantly relied on her too. Sometimes, she gave money she could barely afford. But there was one thing Noella had always dreamed of: a birthday party. It might sound ordinary to most people, but to Noella, it was a dream she had carried since childhood. Growing up, birthdays were never celebrated in her home. Her parents saw them differently. They believed birthday parties were an unnecessary waste of money. So while her friends celebrated their special days with cakes, decorations, music, and guests, Noella could only watch from the sidelines. Deep down, she always wondered what it felt like to be celebrated, to walk into a beautiful decorated hall, to have people cheer for her. Now, she was 24 years old, and in just a few months, she will be turning 25. Maybe it was finally time to give herself the birthday party she had always dreamed of. One evening, while hanging out with her friends, Macy, Kiki, Amanda, and Nora, she finally shared her idea. I want to celebrate my 25th birthday, Noella announced excitedly. The four women cheered immediately. That's amazing, Macy said. You deserve it, Amanda added. But Kiki frowned. Wait a minute, how are you going to afford all these birthday preparations? We all know the small salary you earn from that food shop isn't enough for something this big. The others nodded in agreement. Noella smiled. I don't know yet, but I know it will happen. Her friends exchanged surprised glances. Then Noella smiled again. I just believe somehow it will happen. That night, Noella returned home exhausted. As she lay on her bed, her mind drifted back to the conversation with her friends. I really want this birthday party, she whispered to herself. Then she sat up and grabbed a notebook. If this party is going to happen, I have to work for it. She began writing a plan. First, no more arriving late to work. I will be the first person to open the food shop and catch the early morning buyers. The more food I sell, the higher my salary. Secondly, after work tomorrow, I will look for another small job, maybe cleaning, so I can earn extra money each day. Next, I need to stop spending unnecessarily. Every extra naira I save must go towards my birthday fund. After writing down her goals, she set her alarm and went to bed. The next morning, the alarm rang before sunrise. Noella jumped out of the bed, got ready, and hurried to the small food shop where she worked. She arrived before everyone else and prepared everything before the first customers arrived. That day, she worked harder than ever. By closing time, her feet ached from standing for hours, but she was not done. Earlier that morning, while heading to work, she had noticed a signboard outside a large fabric store. Cleaner needed. As soon as her shift ended, she rushed there, hoping the position was still available. To her surprise, it was. After a short conversation with the manager, she got the job immediately. From that day forward, Noella had two jobs. Every morning, she worked at the food shop. Every evening, she cleaned the large fabric store. Her days became longer. Her body became more tired. But she kept going because of one dream: her birthday. At the end of the month, she sat down with a notebook and calculated her earnings. Then her face fell. Even with two jobs, the money was still far from enough. She stared at the figures and sighed. Only 5 months remained until her 25th birthday. I really want this party, she whispered. But what else can I do? Like the wind, 5 months passed in the blink of an eye. 5 months later, people could hardly believe what they were seeing. Noella was personally distributing elegant birthday invitation cards, and the venue printed on them was one of the most prestigious event centers in town. The moment people received the invitations, questions began flying everywhere. Noella, the same Noella that worked in the food shop, where did she get this kind of money? Soon, the gossip spread through family groups, street corners, and phone calls. Aunties and uncles talked. That money is not clean. The same Luella who took a second job cleaning a fabric store just to earn a little extra money. Yet, somehow, she was planning a birthday celebration that looked far beyond her means. Questions filled the air. Mercy, Amanda, Nora, and Kiki were on a group call. Mercy shook her head. My husband earns well and gives me a monthly allowance, but even I cannot afford a birthday party like this. Amanda agreed immediately. I work as a nurse, and if I ever planned a birthday celebration, it wouldn't be this big. Did you people read everything written on that invitation card? Nora laughed. As a hairstylist with my own shop, I know how hard money is to make. I still can't afford something like this. Kiki remained quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. I sell cosmetics every day, and I know what it takes to save money. Something isn't adding up. Nobody had an answer. The mystery only made them more curious. And with that, they all came to the same conclusion. The money was not clean, and for that reason, they would not attend. The morning of her birthday finally arrived. Noella sat in front of a large mirror as her makeup artist carefully worked on her face while complimenting her glowing skin. You look beautiful, she said. Noella smiled. A few feet away, the photographer moved around the room, snapping pictures from different angles. The camera flashes filled the room. With every picture, Noella's excitement grew. This was the moment she had dreamed about since childhood. The beautiful dress, the makeup, the photos, everything was finally happening. Proud that she had not given up on her dream. Then her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and smiled. It was her parents. She answered immediately. Happy birthday, my daughter, her mother said warmly. Happy birthday, Noella. Her father added. Thank you, she replied happily. There was a brief pause before her mother spoke again. We won't be able to attend the party today. Noella's smile faded slightly. We are sorry, her father added. Something important came up and we won't make it. It's okay, she said softly. Then her father asked the question everyone seemed to be asking. Noella, where did you get all this money from? Your mother and I have been wondering the same thing. Noella smiled. That's a surprise. I promise I will tell everyone after the birthday party. After a few more birthday wishes, the call ended. A few minutes later, Noella stepped out of the dressing room and into the waiting car. As the car approached the event center, Noella's smile widened. The entrance was stunning. Everything looked exactly the way she had imagined it. But the moment she walked inside, something felt strange. The hall was quiet. Very quiet. Noella looked around in confusion. Why is my birthday hall empty? Where is everyone? I invited all of them. She glanced at the rows of neatly arranged chairs, expecting guests to walk in at any moment. But no one came. Tears gathered in her eyes as she looked around the beautifully decorated hall. After a long silence, Noella wiped her tears and turned to the caterers. With a heavy heart, she instructed them to share the food and drink with people outside, rather than let them go to waste. If the guests she invited would not come, at least someone would be fed that day. After that day, Noella disappeared. No dramatic goodbye, no explanation. She simply vanished from everyone's life. Days passed, then weeks. No one heard from her. One afternoon, Noella's parents decided to visit the house where she had been living. When they arrived, they were met with shocking news. Noella, one of the tenants said, she packed out a long time ago. Her parents stared at each other in disbelief. Packed out? Where did she go? The tenant shook his head. We don't know. For the first time, real fear settled into their hearts. Noella was their only child, and now they had no idea where she was. They began searching everywhere. They called relatives, visited friends, but nobody knew anything. Meanwhile, Mercy, Amanda, Nora and Kiki kept trying to reach her. They called repeatedly. Their calls went unanswered. They sent messages. No replies came. Weeks turned into months. The months continued to pass. Aunties began asking questions. Uncles started making calls. Everyone who once knew Noella suddenly wanted to find her, but it was as if she had disappeared into thin air. And with every passing month, the fear of never seeing her again grew stronger. Far away in another town, seated in the living room of a beautiful apartment, was Noella, the woman everyone had been searching for. By now, she already knew. She knew her parents were looking for her. She knew her friends were calling. She knew her aunties and uncles were asking questions. Sometimes, she sat quietly and thought about it all. A bitter smile would appear on her face. The same people who could not spare a few hours to celebrate with her now seemed determined to find her. The thought hurt. Yet, despite everything, she could not stop thinking about her parents. The last thing she wanted was for them to spend the rest of their lives worrying about their only child. So one evening, she sat down at a table and began to write a letter. In the letter, she assured them that she was safe. She told them not to worry, and she politely asked everyone to stop searching for her. Then she addressed the question everyone had been asking since her birthday. The money. Where had it come from? She explained exactly how she got the money for the birthday party. Slowly, she folded the letter, and placed it inside an envelope. A few days later, identical letters began arriving at different homes. One was delivered to her parents, while others found their way to Macy, Amanda, Nora, Kiki, and everyone else. As each person opened their envelope and began to read, it slowly dawned on them that they had judged Noella wrongly. Back when she was working as a cleaner at the large fabric store, she did far more than sweep floors and clean offices. Whenever customers needed help carrying fabric rolls, locating materials, or running small errands around the store, Noella gladly assisted them. She never imagined that one ordinary day would change everything. One afternoon, a customer walked into the store. He was a well-dressed man in his late 50s and the owner of a clothing company. For nearly 30 minutes, he walked through the store, examining different fabrics, but struggling to make a decision. From where she was arranging supplies, Noella noticed his frustration. After a moment, she walked over politely. "Good afternoon, sir. Is there anything I can help you with?" Lucas smiled. "Actually, yes. I'm trying to choose between these two materials, but I can't decide." Noella asked a few questions about the type of clothing he planned to produce and the customers he was targeting. Then she carefully examined both fabrics. After a few moments, she pointed to one of them. "If you're looking for comfort and something customers will want to buy again, I will go with this one." Lucas looked surprised. "You sound very sure." Noella laughed. "I have watched customers buy fabrics here every day. After a while, you learn what people like." Impressed, Lucas followed her advice. Before leaving, he collected her phone number and promised to let her know how the fabric performed. A few weeks later, Lucas called. The clothing collection produced from the material Noella recommended had sold beyond expectations. Demand was so high that customers kept placing new orders. Lucas was amazed, not just by the sales, but by how accurately Noella had understood the market. He knew he needed someone with that kind of eye in his business. So he made her an offer. Lucas asked if she would be willing to work for his company as an assistant responsible for helping source fabrics and materials for new collections. The salary was more money than Noella had ever imagined earning. She was speechless at first, then she accepted immediately. Within a few weeks, she relocated and began her new job. But she told no one. She wanted it to be a surprise. Month after month, she worked diligently and saved most of her salary for her birthday. As the letter continued, Noella's parents lowered their head in silence. For the first time, they realized how alone their daughter had felt. The dream she had carried since childhood had meant far more to her than they had ever understood. Across town, Macy, Amanda, Nora, and Kiki sat quietly with the letter in their hands. They remembered all the time Noella had shown up for them without being asked. Yet, when she needed them most, they had turned their backs on her. One by one, guilt settled heavily in their hearts. The days that followed were filled with phone calls, messages, and letters. Everyone wanted to apologize. Her parents apologized. Her friends apologized. Even relatives who had once joined in the gossip reached out to her to ask for forgiveness. And one by one, Noella forgave them. But forgiveness did not erase the hurt overnight. She still needed time to heal. Noella continued working at Lucas' clothing company. For the first time in her life, she had a well-paying job. She rented a beautiful apartment of her own. She traveled when she wanted to. She bought things she genuinely liked. But while her life improved, some things changed. The bond she once shared with her friends was no longer there. Life slowly moved on. Then another year passed. Soon, Noella's 26th birthday arrived. Her parents called and begged her to come home. After much persuasion, she agreed. The moment she arrived, she noticed something unusual. Before she could ask any questions, the doors opened. The place was beautifully decorated. Music filled the air. Flowers, cakes, and smiling faces surrounded her. Her parents were there. Her friends were there. Her aunties and uncles were there too. Everyone was there. This time, every chair was occupied. This time, nobody was missing. For a moment, Noella could not speak. Tears filled her eyes as she looked around the room. A year ago, she had stood alone in an empty hall. Now she was surrounded by people who had come for only one reason, to celebrate her. Her mother walked over and held her hand. "We can't change what happened," she said softly, "but we wanted to make things right." Noella burst into tears and hugged her. The rest of the evening was filled with laughter, music, dancing, and countless happy memories. After years of dreaming about it, Noella's birthday wish finally came true. Thank you for watching, but before you leave, tell us if you think Noella was right for not telling everyone where she got the money, and how you would have handled the situation if you were invited to Noella's birthday. See you in the next story.